Yo, 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 what is going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of Drunk on Ice, but it's a special episode because midway through, we're going to switch gears a little bit and debut our new baseball specific Drunk on the Fightins episode. So, without further ado, Jay, it's been a minute. We had to call in some substitute teachers here to break down some hockey. So special shout out to Mike from Fired Up, to Matt Sandeep for jumping on from the Buds All Day from the Maple Leafs podcast. But Jay, good to have you back, brother. How you doing?
Yeah, it's good to be back. I miss you, brother. Like it's like we've talked about it before. Like the anticipation of when we only do a show every other week, a bi-weekly show, and then of course. When you miss one of those weeks, it's pretty much like I haven't seen you in a month. So,
yeah, brother.
Happy to be back. I know there's been a lot of news, with the hockey team, but nothing really exciting. So, I'm sure we'll get into that. But I'm actually, it's so weird because when we started Drunk on Ice, we were way up here with excitement for the Flyers, and now it's like I've told you, man. I've told quite a few people I haven't watched a game in 2022. That's how bad it is. I have no desire to watch this team, and that to me, when that happens, that's when I know that this team's went off a cliff. And
you're right.
I'm more excited about baseball, so I'm actually excited that we're going to be debuting the Drunk on the Fightins. That's why I got my you got shirt on. I got my Phillies gear on, and I'm ready to go for that. But I know we got a special guest.
Jay, without further ado, introduce our special guest here.
Well, the special guest, it's actually one of my best friends, Joe Bucci, and I'm extremely happy and honored. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to actually be the first one to have him as a guest, as my co-host Phil on DSM actually had him as a fill-in for me when I was at work. But I will say, for considering that was his very first podcast, I was absolutely blown away. And, he did an excellent job. So excited to have him on. And I guess without further ado, we'll bring out Joe.
Here we go. Joe, welcome. Welcome to our Drunk on the Ice, Drunk on the Fightins. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into things.
Hey, Don, I think you're blocked. I can't see your face. There.
How you doing, guys? Little bit about myself. Wow. Let's see. Well, obviously, I'm a diehard Philadelphia sports fan. 4 for 4 all the way. Bleed green. You cut me, I bleed green. I'm actually a transplant. I grew up in upstate New York, and I moved to the Philadelphia area because my stepdad and his family are from Northeast Philadelphia. So growing up, when I was, I was probably 10 or 11 when I moved to the Philly area. So growing up, I liked some college sports like Syracuse. There was a big team up there. Unfortunately, I did like the Bills and the Giants. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I got it right. Once I moved to Philly, I really fell in love with the whole Philadelphia sports scene, and
Listen, Joe, I'll never rag on somebody for rooting for your hometown team. So now and actually, when I was looking at your bio, I was wondering what I saw the little orange in the bio, and I was like, I thought it was Syracuse because I have a couple of colleagues at work that are Syracuse grads, but man, just excited to love the stuff that you were doing with Phil with the Philly sports take. So without further ado, gentlemen, do we spend the first segment throwing bouquets at what could be probably the best Flyer that is in our lifetime ish, maybe top 5?
Well, I don't know if he's definitely top 5. He's not the best in my lifetime, but I'm an old man. So obviously you know who that would be in my opinion. Mr. 88.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But
listen, but
I will say Claude Giroux, you know, I think the thing about Claude Giroux that makes him, like, I don't want to say more special, but like, was the longevity.
yeah.
You know, obviously, you know, played his whole career. But you know, listen, I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but you know, people have asked me what my thoughts are on Claude Giroux, and
Right.
I can't say a bad word about him as a person, and I can't really
not at
say a
all.
word about him as a player per se. He's a very, very good hockey player. As you mentioned, probably I would say he's probably top 3 Flyers of all time. But in my opinion, the things that he lacks are what basically the team lacks, and that's leadership. Like him wearing that C, you would expect more as far as a leadership quality. Now, I will say, as much as I complain about Claude Giroux's leadership and the fact that, you know, he was never really able to get the team over the hump, I will say in the NHL, it's more than one player. Like, it's a team. And the organization did fail miserably in surrounding him with talent to the point where the talent could help him, you know, bring this team, you know, to the promised land. And that's a fact.
Yeah. Joe, what are your thoughts on Giroux?
You know, I guess it's kind of along the same line. You know, like I said, when I got to Philly, it was Eagles and Flyers, you know, playing street hockey in the back alleys. You know, the Legion of Doom, Ron Hextall, you know, the Broad Street, the 90s version of the Broad Street Bullies. But I think, and it happens a lot in Philadelphia sports. They have some really good players, borderline great players, but they can never really surround the individuals with, you know, complementary pieces. You know, that cup run that they had in 2010 was spectacular. And, you know, things kind of just fell into place that year. And then they go ahead and get rid of guys like Mike Richards and Jeff Carter. So, you know, it's a tough go. It's a tough go.
I mean, I think for me, like the hard part, like for me, like the thing that might separate Giroux from Lindros was, right, what do we always say? Like the best ability is availability, right? So Giroux, you could say consistently was able to stay healthier than Lindros. You won't doubt that Lindros, talent-wise, was head and shoulders above. He was one of the elite players when he could stay healthy. But that was always his knock, right? He was never a guy that could consistently stay healthy. I don't know. I mean, his production, though, I mean, he's a guy who's a product of his environment, right? He was a guy who was always going to be – he wore the C but didn't always act like the captain. And I think that may be where his legacy – where it falls. I was in my head, I'm thinking the word die. Like that's where his legacy died. It doesn't die, right? But it's that's where it kind of ends. It falls with him never being surrounded with any other top end talent, number one. But two, he never really essentially elevated the production of the guys that he was on the ice with.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I see where you're coming from as far as the availability aspect, but I also believe that it's hard to kind of compare because it's two different eras of hockey. That era was much more physical. The rules have changed to protect players immensely to the point where I believe if Eric Lindros played in today's game, he may not have had the same concussion history because he wouldn't have been able to get hit the way that he was hit back then. That
True.
Scott Stevens hit, and in reality, it wasn't a dirty hit. It was actually a legitimate hit, but that hit would never happen today in today's game because of the way that.
No, it's a different game.
And that's where I kind of look at it as being. I go by what I watched as a player, and not only did Eric Lindros put up numbers, but he carried the team on his back day in and day out. Not saying Claude Giroux never carried the Flyers on his back, but I didn't see that consistently enough for me to be able to say that he's my, personal favorite player. Obviously, it's hard to argue that he's not up in the top because, like I said, he has the numbers. As far as him being, a likable guy, I mean, the guy is, he is very humble. I mean,
Jay, he's beyond likable. Like he was everything that we wanted him to be. We just didn't get the production that we wanted. The production never matched the guy. The guy is a great guy.
But no, you're right. But I still, because me, I am so frustrated with the ownership and the what's the word I'm looking for? The front office of this organization for not making ancillary moves to help players. Like Joe said, like it's not just the Flyers. We see it with a lot of these teams in Philly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, we saw it with the Phillies. Now, obviously, we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. But where they had Bryce Harper, and it was like, okay, well, let's just let Bryce Harper do everything. And you can't do that. Like, regardless of how good a player is, it's a team sport. You have to have complementary pieces. And in hockey, I think that may be the most important sport to have that because, there's a balance. And if you realistically look at the Flyers' history, their Achilles heel has always been their goaltending. So
and how prophetic, Jay, is that right now, and Joe, that they have the goalie figured out, but nothing else.
Nothing else.
Go figure, right?
Joe, talk about that for a second.
It's incredible. It's, like I said before, going back to the Ron Hextall days, he was one of the best goalies. Some people say he was the best goalie, but he was always very good, but he was never great. It's such a shame because this city is well, for the most part, is a hockey city. It has gone downhill over the years, but they made the playoffs. They had that run against the Islanders. But if you look back, years before that, there's a lot of gaps where they're not competitive enough. They're not close to getting in. They're not close to competing. It reminds me a lot of the Phillies with not being able to grow talent or not having an eye for talent. Morgan Frost comes to mind. TK had a really nice year a couple of years ago. Where is he now? Why hasn't Frost been able to take that next step if he's supposed to be this, immaculate puck carrier and right. Goal scorer? It's just I don't know if ownership and management really know what they're doing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, how sad is it that you probably have to go back that far to match up the last time that they had competent goalie play and they had offense, like they had all three parts figured out. Like you have to go all the way back probably to Hextall for the last time that they
when they got swept by the Red Wings.
Yeah. I mean, it's
I do think that a couple of years in 2000s they had I remember a goalie that I was very high on, and of course he kind of went off the deep end and AWOL, but was Roman Cechmanek. He actually one year almost won the Vezina Trophy. Like he was extremely good numbers in the regular season, but then it would go off the rails in the playoffs. But yeah, for the most part, like they haven't had a consistent goalie since Ron Hextall. Like, Ron Hextall was obviously took him to the Cup in '85.
Right.
And then, I'm sorry, didn't take him to the Cup. 87.
87.
Took him to the Cup and basically almost single-handedly won that series. He won the Conn Smythe in a losing effort, which maybe I don't think that's happened since then, or it may have happened only once since then. And that's going back to 87. But yeah, Hextall obviously, took him to the Cup in 87. And then, of course, 97, we remember that when they got swept by the Red Wings. But they still had a great team that year. It's just they went up against a buzzsaw. Like the Red Wings were like, unstoppable. Right. They had like a wall, like their defense. Nick Lidstrom, and they had like amazing defense. And of course, their goalie was who was their goalie that year? Was it Hasek?
Might have been. I think it might have been.
Which year?
Red Wings.
In 97 when they played.
Mike Vernon.
Okay, yeah, it was Vernon.
Ooh, okay.
But anyway,
pretty sure.
Point taken that it's been that long, and now we have Carter Hart, but the rest of the team sucks.
Now, listen, when we talk about the package that they got back for Giroux, or the guys that they gave up, in everything that I'm sure that we've all seen, right? The organization was probably very hamstrung in what they could get back, considering from everything we've read and everything we've seen and heard, right? The Giroux said it's Florida or nowhere, which kind of, is a little bit of a D move, right? For him to say, I get that he's earned the right to say that, but at the same time, could you not maybe just play into it and say, maybe I'll consider Colorado, or maybe I'll even if you have no desire to go to Colorado or the Rangers or Boston or whoever. Well, it really limited what they got back, because what they got back was they got back Tippett, they got back the 2024 first round pick, which any of the picks from Florida in 24, 20, whatever, they're going to be in the late part of the round. So that pick really does nothing. And, I heard Mike was saying on his show on Monday night that, like, all right, so you pick a guy in the late 20s in 2024, that guy's going to take 4, 5, 6 years. You might not see that guy till 2030. Like the package that they got back doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I know Tippett is a guy that got a lot of clout early on in that draft process, but just underperformed. Maybe they can turn him around. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah. So first of all, to address the situation with Giroux, basically hamstrunging the organization. So from all reports are that he would have been more apt to go to other teams and actually open up the amount of teams that he would be willing to go to.
Right.
But he wanted the organization to, and I don't know if they can actually do this, but he wanted basically them to tell him that, we will definitely think highly of bringing you back. And they weren't willing to do that. And that's why he basically said, well, then I only want to go to Florida. Because it was kind of like maybe like kind of a negotiating tactic on his part. Because I really believe that he didn't want to leave Philly. But he kind of looked at it like, obviously, he's not winning here. And this gives him an opportunity to go somewhere else and win. But in the same token, what was Florida going to do once they knew that they were the only team in town? Like, they weren't going to up their offer. So the Flyers are really screwed because
Jay, here's what they did.
Exactly.
They sat back and they said, all right, Flyers, here's what you got.
Yeah,
take it or leave it.
It's easy to sit there and play Monday morning quarterback and like bash.
It is. You're right.
But realistically, what were you going to do? You could have given him away, and we would be complaining that, oh, you didn't get anything, because they weren't going to get anything of value. The only
Jay.
way, in my opinion, the only way that they would get something of value anyway, even if they trade him to Colorado, the first round pick to me is not important because of exactly what you said. The teams that he's going to are going to finish very, very low in the draft process. So you're talking 23rd, 24th, 25th pick in the first round. You're not talking about a generational, or you're not even talking about a good, needle moving player.
Right.
So realistically, you basically got Tippett and 2 lottery picks, and not when I say lottery, not lottery in the first round. I mean lottery, like you don't know what you're getting.
Crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot.
But Tippett, to me, I'm not ready to sit here and say that the guy's a bust because,
he's looked good so far.
Listen, he's a little bit different. We're not talking about Nolan Patrick here. Nolan Patrick was a second pick in the draft. Second pick in the NHL draft. Okay.
Jay, remember remember the missed draft picks is a whole nother show.
Oof.
That's a whole show.
That's a week.
That's we could have a whole year's worth of programming to talk about the missed draft picks.
We'll do a collaboration with Toronto on that one. But what I'm getting at is that we're not talking about a second pick in the draft, Nolan Patrick. No. We're talking about the 10th pick in the draft, Owen Tippett. NHL, once again, anything past like the top 3 picks, usually it's a crapshoot. And to me, Tippett's a guy, like, although I'm not ready to say he's like a superstar, he's also a guy that could help this team moving forward because he's still fairly young. He was only drafted in 2017. So I'm not going to bitch and moan about what the return was because, like I said, at this point, to me, I think the more important thing was the fact that we need to rebuild. And when I look at the moves that they made, yeah, they sold off Justin Braun and they sold off Brassard. But did they really do anything of value that would show you that they are really interested in rebuilding or blowing this thing up? Because I didn't.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to shock me.
Joe, talk to me. Talk me off the list.
I don't know. It's just like I'm at a loss for words. I mean, guys are injured still. There's guys that are making big contracts. The JVRs of the world, and the Kevin Hayes of the world, and Couturier. Who stays and who goes? Who's untouchable on this team? I mean, if I had to get
everybody but the goalie,
right, really. I mean, you have Carter Hart, maybe Farabee, maybe Farabee is a guy that you can build one of your building blocks, one of your building pieces around him. But there's too many question marks. There's too much inconsistency, and like I said before, when it comes to ownership and management, what direction are they going in? Do they know what they're doing? And who's making these calls? Chuck Fletcher is a good GM. He's not a great GM. He's gotten past the second round, I think, maybe once or twice.
I was gonna say twice. I think
it's twice, and he's never been past that. He's 0-14. So that's what we're looking at. It's just too inconsistent, and I can't.
Listen, Mike's bringing up a good point, right? Like that Ristolainen move of bringing him and signing him for 5 more years, and to make that level of commitment and to commit to a guy that was so mildly consistent at best, and then to commit 5 years, it speaks of like throwing darts at the wall and hoping something sticks.
You know what it speaks to me about? It speaks to me about ineptitude.
Yeah,
because that's the word that comes to mind for me when I hear the Flyers anymore. It's
speaking of ineptitude, Jay. Don't mean to interrupt you. Breaking news: the Zags go down to Arkansas.
Arkansas, baby. Wild.
Sorry, breaking news.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm not a huge college fan.
Breaking news. Well, with the Zags going down in March, it's more like broken news.
That's absolutely true. But getting back to my ineptitude,
Right. Yes.
I firmly believe that just shows how dumb they are as an organization, because to me, it's almost like a Howie Roseman type move where they don't want to admit that they were wrong in trading for him in the first place. Because to me, the package that they gave up to get Risto was pretty steep, and people were bitching and moaning. Now, listen, I was one that was actually commending them for the trade, which now I look like an absolute buffoon. But at the time, I was actually saying, you know what, Ristolainen, he's exactly what this team's missing, a hard-nosed guy that's going to not take shit and it's going to knock people around. And you know what? He didn't do that. But you know what? Neither did anybody else. So this is where I'm getting at, though. It's almost like a Howie Roseman type move where the Flyers had to double down, like Mike said, and then they signed the guy that they realistically should have just said, you know what, let's eat our losses. We made an idiotic trade, but let's move on and not sign more of an idiotic signing. Because now you have a guy, and now you're trying to get your cap situation fixed, and I'm just so done. I don't want to go on a rant. I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do it. But I'm so freaking sick of this team. I'm so sick.
And Jay, listen, Jay, we're in Philly, right?
That's right.
Jay,
maybe next year.
Listen, we'll see, right? Like the thing that I always think about, like Jay, we're in Philly. We would have complained regardless. Right. There's always going to be that, like when, the other trades that are made in other sports. Right. But ignore all that and look at the root of the problem. Right. The root of the problem is where this organization is seated, which is with Comcast, and it's a paycheck, and it's anything and everything to promote the team without the team being relevant, right? So you have this team being run by people who are not interested, don't really give a shit whether or not it's good or bad, as long as we can get people walking in the door and buying t-shirts and buying gritty stuffed animals and all that other dumb shit. Right, the gritty chia pets, and like let's do me a favor. Just
loyalists.
Yeah. Well, because this city is seeded with people who are just blunt, especially with the Flyers, right? Because you got your Flyers only fans that will live and die with this team and aren't willing to look at the reality of what this team actually is.
Yeah, but that's so fake. It defies reality.
Jay, a lot of people are fake.
I know, but it makes me like the blind loyalists that protect the team. Like I see it on Twitter all the time, like on Flyers Twitter, like, oh, Flyers aren't that bad. Come on, man. What are you talking about? They are horrible. They've been horrible for a very long time. And unless people start speaking up and showing frustration like me, no, let's just keep kissing their ass and keep spending money and keep going to the games and act like there's nothing wrong with this team. That's fine. That's how you guys want to be? Do it. Not me. Sorry.
Jay, I had to give you the solo screen for a minute.
Yeah.
Good gracious.
It's frustrating. It is so frustrating. And I hate I feel like I'm a Debbie Downer when it comes to the Flyers, but what can we actually be happy about?
Jay, it's not that you're Debbie Downer, Jay. You're willing to look at the reality of what this team is, and it's not good, but it doesn't feel good. When it's shitty, it doesn't feel good.
I'm bored. That's what I told you. I haven't watched the game in 2022.
And I texted Mike earlier today because I'm scrolling through trying to figure out where the game is, what channel is it on, and he goes, I think this is one of those ESPN Plus games. And I was like, you know what? like, great. That's great. I like even more reason to just kind of just tune out. And he texted me. He goes, I'm actually probably going to watch the Florida game because it was the game where Giroux's going to debut with the Panthers. I mean, it speaks to anything and everything about this franchise that is mired in futility. And so, Jay, before anything else you want to wrap up on the Flyers before we kind of go around the league a little bit and then get into some baseball?
No, I think I'm ready to move on. I don't have that unless Joe has something to add.
No, I mean that's hard to follow that up. I mean he's right on point with that. You know, it's frustrating because I love hockey. I love going to games. I love going to Flyers games. They're always so much fun, but they're just not now. They're just not, and who knows when they will be, when they're going to be competitive. It's a crapshoot. You know, they're out of the 4 sports teams, they are like in the abyss right now.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
There's
like a distant fourth
For the foreseeable future.
There's no light. There's no tunnel and there's no light.
I mean, not for nothing. We don't have a soccer podcast, but you could probably make an argument that the Union have jumped the Flyers in terms of relevancy, in terms of their presence,
absolutely.
in terms of the atmosphere at the games.
Yep.
You could probably make a better case that the Union is in a better spot and a better position than the Flyers are. Like, they are like a distant 5th.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, listen, around the league, Joe, who's a guy out of the city that's impressed you? Anybody out of the city? Anybody around the league that's impressed you this year watching hockey?
Boy. Connor McDavid. You know, a guy like that. You know, we don't necessarily need. I mean, if you could find somebody like that, that's great. But there's only one Connor McDavid. But right. You need to find players that can possess the puck, can win one-on-one battles. Whenever you need a clutch goal, you know he's gonna get it. It's just, you know, the Flyers are so far removed from having a player like that. You know, when you go back to a guy like Claude Giroux, he had moments like that, but they were years ago, and I think they were few and far between. He was a great regular season player. I think he had moments in the playoffs, but I think there was a lot of games where he didn't show up in the playoffs. But whether it was his fault or not, whether it was he didn't have the supporting cast. But yeah, that's the kind of guy that I think of when I'm building a hockey team, or I want a guy who's got elite skill, and can do it night in and night out, get you 2 points a game or 3 points a game or 4 points a game. He's that guy that can take over a game all by himself, and he does make his teammates better. Right. But that's a guy that immediately pops into my head.
Yeah, Jay, over the course of the last couple of weeks, I know you're not watching Flyers games, but I know you kind of you take a peek around the league. Who's a guy in the last couple of weeks that's impressed you?
Shesterkin.
Yeah, man.
From the Rangers. I mean, talk about, like, you know, I know obviously we're high on Carter Hart, but like I look at Carter Hart and I don't see him being as elite as a Shesterkin. And I get that it's also the defense in front of him, but I see goalies that can carry teams on their back legitimately every day. And
Yeah.
that's one that comes to my mind. Quite a few of the other teams that have good goalies have super power offenses. Obviously,
Anderson and Frederick Anderson in Carolina has been impressive. But Shesterkin, when we were talking, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, when we were talking about Shesterkin and we were talking about a team that is kind of laying in the weeds that might be able to make a cup run, like you could see Shesterkin just putting the Rangers on the back. They got enough offense that he could win you a series or two. That's how well he's playing.
I think it was the last show we talked about it, and I said that it's kind of amazing that the Rangers have kind of went. They've never had bad goaltending. They had Mike Richter for all those years.
Yeah.
Mike Richter was a stud. I mean, won an Olympic medal. Won a cup. And then you had obviously this previous guy, and I always forget his name. I don't know why.
Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Henrik Lundqvist. And now you have Shesterkin. It's like they just kind of don't miss a beat when it comes to goaltending. It's like the opposite of – it's like the antithesis of the Flyers. They always have good goalies. So, yeah, he's a guy that comes to mind. I mean, obviously, if you're going to look offense, I think the player that – I don't want to say has surprised me, but the player that is most on my radar as far as, a guy that has kind of taken his game to the next level would have to be Huberdeau from Florida. I mean –
Yeah, I mean, a guy who's –
I'm saying his name wrong, I know. I always pronounce hockey players' names wrong.
Jay, you're close enough. But like a guy who's just insanely productive, right? A guy who's got – you can tell that he's got what, right now, 65 assists on the year. Mm-hmm. Like a guy who's able to not only be offensively productive with the 21 goals, but be able to get other players involved. He's not just a puck dominant guy. So, right, Jay, he's what, third in the league in scoring right now?
Yeah. Yes,
a guy who's been uberly impressive. But the guy for me is a guy who's I watched. There was a behind the scenes Amazon series with the Maple Leafs, and I always hear about Austin Matthews, but seeing him in that series and then paying attention to him throughout this year, I mean, talk about a guy who's been on a tear in the last couple of weeks. Not even a couple of weeks, the last almost a month and a half, where he's averaging almost a goal a game. Just a guy who's just insanely productive. But a guy, ironically, that came out of the desert, right? A guy came out of, grew up and started playing hockey in Arizona. But just a guy who's just uberly productive. You know what?
So are we ready to make our
listen, here we go. You ready? We got nothing else, right? Hockey is hockey. We'll get into the playoffs at some point, but right now we're going to talk about the Fightins. We're going to switch over. So if you tuned in for hockey, stick around for baseball. But we got our debut Drunk on the Fightin' segment. So give us half a second here. Yo. We are now friends. We're just drunk at this point. We're switching it up. You know what? I'm going to switch up the hat. Listen, the moves that were made this week were needle movers. For the hometown, the Philadelphia Phillies bring in. They finally get the chance to design a team that fits this ballpark. This ballpark was built for guys that are going to mash. And, man, do they ever have that right now to be able to put those, they add Castellanos, they add Kyle Schwarber. They now have the opportunity to go right, left, all throughout the beginning of that lineup. Joe, I'm going to let you go first. Talk to me about what you're excited about in terms of these two additions to this lineup.
Oh, as a diehard Phillies fan, it's huge. I mean, it's really hard to put it into words. It's been a long time coming for this owner to go over the tax, which has never happened before, and it finally did. So, getting a guy like Castellanos and getting a guy like Schwarber, and you've already got the National League MVP, and like you said, going back and forth with the lefties and the righties. A lot of these guys are interchangeable. Castellanos can play the outfield. Castellanos can play third base, and that park, it's a hitter's dream. They're going to score a lot. They're going to score a ton of runs. Obviously the only question with this team is the pitching. That's the big question because, Nola in his two preseason or spring training games does look like crap. I mean, it's a small sample. It's a small sample, but and then you have Wheeler probably won't be ready. So I guess your day one starter is Nola, which is scary. But when it comes down to the offensive side of everything, there's no reason why this team can't just out hit you.
It's gonna be like your Sunday softball team, right? You're not. This team is not gonna win a ton of games 2-1, right? It's gonna be more like 8-6, 9-7. You're gonna see that. Prepare yourselves if you're going down for very, very long nights, because there's going to be a lot of activity on the bases. Jay, talk to me about what you're excited about.
It's funny because, I'm usually generally Mr. Negativity when it comes to the Phillies, and obviously.
Jay, it's all positive vibes right now.
I know. I'm just saying it's funny because you're not going to believe it, but I'm actually extremely excited. When I saw the Nick Castellanos signing, I was actually just about ready to go to sleep. And the whole day I was seeing all these rumors, floating around, and I just didn't want to believe it. I was like, there's no way that Middleton's going over to tax. Absolutely no way, because like I said, my whole negative philosophy on the Phillies, they never have went over the tax. So what would make me believe that now is the time? And I see that tweet and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was up that whole entire night. I think I slept 1 hour and I was basically retweeting stuff. Then I was deep diving into Nick Castellanos, stats and numbers. And, I was just absolutely brought back in. But then I quickly realized, with all my excitement about Nick Castellanos and the Phillies offense, then I remembered that we still have to field a pitching staff. And I was kind of you know what? I was back to the Jason negative Voorhees again.
Jay, don't get caught up in the facts, right? The facts are only distorting your energy, right? There's don't look at that. Look away, right? Look away from the defense, right? And look at Jay. Look at how exciting it's gonna be, right? When you throw up a lineup, right? And I'm going through, right? And I saw this online, but the idea of having Schwarber lead off. At first, I looked at it and I was like, really? Not your traditional leadoff guy, right? But in this park, they are going to need to get the starters out fast, right? That's how they're going to win games, by getting starters out. What a better opportunity, right? If you have Schwarber lead off, you put automatically yourself in the opportunity to be able to be up 1-0 within the first at bat. Because that dude can go yard. Reminds me a lot of Matt Stairs, right? But a guy who's going to be consistently a little bit more productive. But if you went Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, Real Muto, Hoskins, you're telling me you're not going to get production if you put those 5 guys in a row to start a game?
Well, here's where I'm at as far as their offense. I firmly believe, and Aaron's right, you're going to have to outscore people, but I believe they will.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny that the Phillies lineup right now, it's an American League lineup. Now, obviously, having the DH makes this that much more better. What I look at as far as the lineup, what I like is that I believe there's an extreme amount of combinations that Joe Girardi has at his disposal. And what I mean by that is they have numerous guys that can play numerous positions. So Alec Boehm, who I believe, if you realistically look at Alec Boehm, he's a very good hitter, but he is not slotting good defensively, realistically anywhere. But he probably would be better at first than third. I've already saw the Phillies fielding Nick Castellanos at third base, which is actually where his primary position was for the longest time before last year. But what I'm getting at is that I think when you have different combinations of lineups that you can put out there every day, and you have so much versatility as to how you write those lineups, that makes it a lot harder for this team to go into that offensive slump that they're known for, that they've been known for the past 3 or 4 years, even when they've had good offensive players like Bryce Harper, Real Muto, et cetera, et cetera.
True.
Their lineup is going to allow them, even when they have a Rhys Hoskins struggling, you have a Nick Castellanos to pick it up. When Nick Castellanos is struggling, you have a Gene Segura to pick him up. There's always going to be somebody that's hitting well. That's what going the extra mile and going over the tax and getting Castellanos is the difference to me between this team having a legit shot. I'm not saying at winning a World Series, but at contending for the National League, playoffs, as opposed to being still a team that I believe wasn't ready there or wasn't close to being there by just getting Schwarber. By getting both of them, you not only sign them for less money than Chris Bryant by himself, but you sign 2 guys that, like I said, Kyle Schwarber, to me, is a one-dimensional player. But what I will say about Kyle Schwarber is he does get on base. And he is a very good leadoff hitter. He showed that with Boston. So I like that. Nick Castellanos.
He's fun to watch. I mean, he's great.
I don't think you can quantify, though, how important the Nick Castellanos signing is. Because you have Nick Castellanos and you have Bryce Harper. So you have 2 guys that are capable of hitting 300, knocking in 100 RBIs, scoring 100 runs, and hitting 35 home runs down at the bank. I mean, Castellanos and Harper could easily hit 40.
Jay, Joe, you could legit say that you had the potential to have 5 guys in this lineup that could put up 20-plus home runs. You got 4 guys that could do 30-plus home runs. You are going to get a lot of production. And I think the one thing that I like that from the Castellanos deal is that it provides you a lot of flexibility now with the DH, right? That universal DH is huge for this team now, because if, Hoskins needs a day off, right? He's a DH. You slide Boehm over to first. You have a lot of flexibility in where those guys, not only where they're going to slot in the lineup, but where they can be on the field.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, and to Aaron's previous comment, their defense is going to be atrocious. I mean, let's face it.
Don't get it twisted. It's going to be bad.
They're overlooking the defense. I think this just shows you that there's so many teams that have become so focused on analytics.
Mm-hmm.
And they're almost punting on the defense because they're just looking at it like, okay, we're going to just outscore everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality. And you know what? That's fine. But I will say,
Jay, to be honest, maybe that's what baseball needs. Like, if baseball wants to get people back, like, when was the last time baseball really had America? Right? When Sosa and McGuire are going back and forth night after night, they're cutting in coverages, right? To see those guys at bat. Not for nothing. Like, I grew up, like, I played college baseball. I love baseball. But some nights baseball's just fucking boring. Right? Like, maybe they like getting rid of the shift. You know, that I think that does that go into effect this year or next year?
Next year. Yeah.
Right. So getting that out of the game maybe allows more balls to be put into play. You got more guys on base. Maybe a guy's going first to third. Maybe a guy's going to hit it. He's going to be able to get a triple because there's not 6 guys in the outfield, right? You don't have you don't have 3 guys on the right side of the infield. Like, maybe baseball just needs to be more offensive so that you can maybe get some interest back in the game.
yeah,
I can get it. Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I agree 100%. I guess going back to where I kind of was going earlier, and then you steered me away because you want me to.
That's what I do best.
You want me to avoid and ignore the noise, but I guess my main
look away, Jay.
My main concern.
It's not fun over there.
Is their starting pitching, and here's where I look at it in 2 different mentalities. So, if you want to look at just purely numbers, Aaron Nola last year had a horrible year. I mean, he had over a 4 ERA, which is not. I believe he was like 20th ranked as far as pitchers that qualified as far as starting pitchers.
Okay.
But when I kind of did a deep dive into Aaron Nola's numbers, you start to see that maybe last year wasn't as bad of a season as everybody thought it was, you know, as far as the eye test and as far as the numbers go. And the reason I say that is that if you look at his FIP, which I know there's so many different statistics now in baseball that it like kind of gets your mind kind of gets blown sometimes by how many statistics there are. But FIP is basically fielding independent pitching, which stands for it's all the numbers that the pitcher can control. So like the ERA is a lot of times a number that is out of your control because, you know, a guy had an error or whatever happens, a fielding mistake or whatever. So basically FIP is a category that it's basically ERA, but the things that it controls. So strikeouts, unintentional walks, hit by pitches, and then home runs. So if you look at Aaron Nola's FIP, it was 10th in the NL. I mean, 10th in the majors. And that was a full point less than his ERA. What that tells me is that Philly's defense was bad, and a lot of his situational pitching was bad. Whereas when he got the 2 strikes, he either put the guy out on strikeouts or he gave up where the ball was put in play. I look at Aaron Nola's numbers every single year. It seems like he has almost like a good year, bad year, good year. When I say bad, I mean worse year than prior. So he's almost like on a consistent track where every other year he performs where he should. So if you look at it that way, then this year he should have a bounce back year. But I'm looking at spring training and I get it. It's spring training. It's early. It was only 2 starts, but it's the same Aaron.
It was only 2 starts
that I'm seeing.
But some of those pitches were fucking meatballs.
Guerrero.
Well, and once again, is he just trying to get his arm right? Like I can't really go by that per se, but what I'm getting at is the Phillies as a whole every single year we rely on the what ifs or, will this guy have a bounce back year? And that's what we're doing with our pitching, because you have your hopes and dreams set on a guy in Aaron Nola who, as I said, is inconsistent. He's ace capable, but he hasn't played as an ace. You have Zach Wheeler, who still has a tired arm. Now, knock on wood, they said he's going to be ready. But whenever I hear tired arm with Zach Wheeler, I'm concerned. And Aaron could testify to that. He was a Mets fan. Wheeler had plenty of injury with the Mets. I worry about a guy like Zach Wheeler. Okay,
we're in Philly. This is where hopes and dreams come to die.
I get that, but it's you got to be honest about the team. Like, I get it that they have a great offense, but their pitching could be either really good or it could be horrible. Zach Eflin, once again, I'm a guy that's not as high on Zach Eflin as the majority. I have not saw consistent enough play from Zach Eflin for me to say that he's a number 3 starter in the league.
Yeah.
Just haven't.
Joe, where are you at on this? Where on the overall sense of this team right now?
Well, if you look at the comparison between this team from last year to this year, they were how close to winning that division, with blowing all those games late in games. If you can get somewhat of the same ending as last year, but then you add all the offense that we added, I mean, that might make up for it. It's
because maybe you're up by 6 runs, and if you give up 3, you still win the game.
Exactly. That all that extra offense should push you to a victory. And we'll see how that translates during the season. And defense wins championships. So how is this team going to match up against like Aaron's team, like the Mets, with DeGrom and Scherzer? It's going to be tough. But don't get me wrong; it's going to be a battle for to win the National League East and to actually get into a playoff berth. But I think that we have the right pieces in place to make that happen. When they interviewed Castellanos about that, when he signed on here, he gave like a typical Philly answer. He was like, I'm more worried about where I'm going to find a good cheesesteak rather than going against DeGrom and Scherzer. Because I think Scherzer he might have a tired arm too. I don't know if that's still bothering him. And DeGrom, they don't score runs for DeGrom. The Mets just don't. Yeah. They typically don't score runs for DeGrom. So it's
maybe this team's philosophy is the best defense is a good offense.
Maybe.
And listen, maybe they put themselves in a position early on in the season that they're putting up enough runs that they're winning more games than they're losing, that maybe they're in a better position to make a move in the middle of the season to add pitching or add defense.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not there now, but maybe the offensive firepower allows them to be able to win games that in previous years they would have lost. So now they're in a better position mid-year. So now they can maybe get to a place where they can get, a bullpen arm, a 4th or 5th starter. Maybe that slots one of those guys. Gibson at the end of the rotation, maybe he moves into a long relief that maybe makes your bullpen better. I'm going with the best defense is a good offense.
Sounds good to me.
Jay, what are you thinking over there?
I mean,
you look deep in thought.
Like I said, I'm very excited about the direction of the team. Mm-hmm. We went over the tax. I can't complain or bitch. I mean, like I said, my whole thing is maybe just maybe we hold out and then we do make a trade. Say we are in contention. we make a trade to get a pitcher, to kind of put us over the top. Because I will be realistic. There's not many guys left out there as far as free agents that I would be interested in. The one guy I was saying that I wouldn't mind if they could get him for cheap would be Johnny Cueto, because even though he is older and he does have some injury history, he is an innings eater. I look at a guy like that who, is consistent. He's not going to, put you over the top, but he's still another guy. Ranger Suarez to me is still young. I mean, I'm hoping that he kind of improves on what he did last year. But to me, I always worry about the sophomore slump, guy having, kind of a step back. And, I don't really see much really on the farm as far as guys that they could bring up. So, like I said,
Actually, you know what, Jay? I'm going to ask you something. I want both of your thoughts on the idea that having Bryson Stott on the opening day roster makes sense.
I mean,
why not? I mean,
I think Bryson Stott should be on the opening day roster. I just don't. I don't see Joe Girardi, who's a Mr. Loyal. I don't see Joe Girardi doing it, and I don't see a reason why Stott shouldn't be. To me, if I was the Philly, if I was the GM, if I was Dombrowski, I would be trying to unload Didi at any cost, even if you had to give him away, because Didi Gregorius' contract is high, and you don't need him. To me, I think this is the perfect team to be able to bring up Stott and let him not have to be like what Alec Boehm did last year. Because let's face it, they put a lot of pressure on Alec Boehm last year to be one of the guys. Now that you signed Schwarber and Castellanos, you added two guys that are going to have 500 at bats, hit 30 home. You added two guys, basically two starters, and you subtracted Andrew McCutchen.
I mean, he's legit probably the 7th or 8th best hitter in this lineup now.
But that's my point.
And that's where he should be.
Exactly. And Alec Boehm, when he's at his best, can hit 300. I don't expect, nor did I ever expect when the Phillies drafted Alec Boehm, that Boehm was going to be a guy that was going to hit 35, 40 home runs. Alec Boehm is a guy that's going to hit 25 to 27 home runs, but he's going to hit close to 300. Right. And he's going to hit maybe 80 to 95 RBIs. But he's not a good defensive player. And that's what his ceiling is. And can he get there? Absolutely, when he doesn't have the pressure. And I think a lot of fans were extremely ready to give up on Alec Boehm after 1 year. And that blows my mind, because Alec Boehm is a guy that definitely has talent. They drafted him, very high. And I believe they got him. I think they got him right. And I hope that they got Stott right. I mean, it seems like they did. All the reports are that the guy's doing extremely well in the minor leagues. He's very tight with Bryce Harper. I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be on the team, but I'm an old school guy. I believe that in baseball today, it seems like they always take too long to bring up prospects, but nobody wants to agree with me on that.
Jay, the Phillies, let's be more specific. The Phillies wait too long to bring up prospects. Around the league, right, you look at teams like look no further than the team that has been leading this division for the last decade, right? The Braves. The Braves just have this incessant cesspool of super crazy, high talented players, right? They're not the Matt Olson trade and signing is out of character for them. Right, they're bringing up, Ronald Acuna. They just have an insane farm system where they are just bringing up guy after guy after guy. Their internal development is probably on par with the Rays, right? They just do a really good job at grooming talent. The Phillies just don't, right? And they consistently miss, right? When you're taking guys like Mickey Moniak and Cornelius Randolph. And those two guys were top 10 picks. Adam Hazley was a top of the draft pick. When you swing and miss hard on those guys were supposed to be the guys that are supposed to be playing right now, right? Hazley is supposed to be a guy who's supposed to be in center field and be really productive for you, and he's not.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I'm not ready to. And once again,
I'm not ready to move on from him, but I'm saying like
I'm not ready to
just
give up
suck at that
on Adam Hazley because I kind of feel like he got a raw deal. I mean, he had personal issues. No one knows the truth. You know, you can speculate whether it was drug and alcohol or was it mental issue, whatever it was. It was
whatever.
something.
I mean, yeah,
that was a personal issue that he had to deal with. In fairness to him, I don't think he got really an opportunity to come back. And now you sign Odubel. To me, I would have never re-signed Odubel. I think that was the biggest waste of signing.
Yep.
Probably the most mind-boggling move of the offseason for the Phillies. Like, why bother? The guy is, first of all, nobody likes him, because of what he did. Nobody likes the guy. And the guy not only does stuff off the field, he's a buffoon on the field. I mean, he can't make a play. I don't understand Odubel. I don't understand that signing. But
Joe,
like I said,
Joe, talk about that for a second.
Odubel?
Yeah.
Do I have to? No, I'm kidding.
No, you don't. No, you can just say he's an asshole, and we can move on.
No, he is. That's the problem with that position out there. It's, who's going to be out there on Monday? Who's going to be out there on Tuesday? Who's going to be out there on Wednesday? It's a shame that once I found out what he did, and once I found that they were re-signing him, I was extremely disappointed. But Moniak has had a pretty good spring training so far. I don't know what that's going to translate to during when the games count. But it's if it were up to me, I wouldn't have brought him back. I mean, he's the epitome of inconsistency. He does boneheaded stuff. He did that to whatever it was, his girlfriend or his wife. It's just why would you want that? Why would you want that on your team? Why would you want that in your locker room? He just does dumb shit. It's just it's disappointing. But I don't know. Does he make the team? Is he on the team the whole year?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's there until someone else plays better than him. Right. So it's going to take a guy like Moniak to have a really strong spring for them to have to make a decision. That they've talked about, Matt Vierling, him and Odubel kind of, alternating days. I don't know. To me, it bothers me that I think the thing that bothers me most, obviously, is all the off-field stuff and all the on-field stuff. Like, it didn't make sense on all those levels. At the same time, it talks directly to the fact that they were not able to develop anyone in the last, 4 or 5 years that he's been here. You haven't been able to develop a center fielder that is better to replace him. And he's not that good. So what does that say about your player development?
It's pretty horrible.
You're 100% spot on that.
Yeah, that's why we are where we are with
exactly.
having to buy players because we can't grow them.
Correct. Gentlemen, anything around the league you want to touch on before we jump out of here? Freddie Freeman goes back to the Dodgers. Correa goes to the Twins. Trevor Story goes back to Boston. Chris Bryant goes to the Rockies.
I mean, Freddie Freeman going to the Dodgers is like the rich getting richer.
Right.
I guess the surprise for me out of that whole list was Correa to the Twins.
Especially with his back issues, to me, it tells like the deal from the Astros was better. Why did he go to the Twins? Do they know something we don't know? But he's also, the thing about that contract is that it's got opt-outs after every year.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking at. He's probably betting on himself. I guess to me the head scratcher was Chris Bryant, and listen, I love Chris Bryant, but when we look at Chris Bryant, I think a lot of people tend to look at Chris Bryant, the old Chris Bryant, and Chris Bryant now is not the same player that Chris Bryant was when they won the World Series. Like, he's just not. And anybody that doesn't realize that is crazy. Just look at his numbers. He's definitely dropped off every single year. And to get the contract that he got, and then we look at what we got 2 players and paid $30 million less.
Well, and also Rich brought this up on our show last night when we kind of touched on this a little bit. They had Nolan Arenado.
Yeah.
Like, Nolan Arenado is much, 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 much better than Chris Bryant. And you're paying Chris Bryant more than you would have paid Nolan Arenado. So why did you move on from Nolan Arenado?
Because they made a mistake. It's that once again, it could be another.
It's the Rockies being the Rockies, right? They're going to the only reason why Chris Bryant goes to the Rockies, because Chris Bryant has not lit the world on fire. He went there because Scott Boras is really, 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 really fucking good at his job. He just got him a huge contract.
Scott Boras is friggin' genius. I know people hate the guy, but true story. Like when
don't hate the player, hate the game. Right? Like that dude is insanely good at his job. He gets his dudes paid.
Yes, he does.
So I was writing an article.
Scott Boras, I need representation.
I was writing an article when the Phillies broke the Bryce Harper news.
Right.
I was writing an article, and it was basically bashing John Middleton, but I was also praising Scott Boras for how he was a genius, and and then of course the Bryce Harper signing happened, and I realized how even more of a genius he is because he got Harper 13 years and no opt-outs and all the other stuff. But yeah, Scott Boras is absolutely amazing at his job. I agree. Like you said, Nolan Arenado, absolute stud. Like I don't know why Colorado would get rid of either. I mean, they had Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado, like just dumb. And this is what I kind of talked about.
Jay, it's very.
As far as why the league doesn't have rules in place to prevent teams from doing this kind of stuff, because that's what boggles my mind. Because more teams would be able to compete if this kind of nonsense wasn't happening, where teams sell off good players instead of spending the money.
I mean, Jay, look no further than the Marlins, right? Marlins a couple years ago, right, had Christian Yelich, who they had. There were 3 guys that they had that
Stanton,
Giancarlo Stanton,
Giancarlo, yeah.
Like they had studs.
They do it every year, but that's what I mean. But Colorado's the same way.
Colorado's no different.
They have like great players and they get rid of them. And then, like I said, then they have Nolan Arenado and Story and they get rid of them. It doesn't make sense to me. But why does the league allow it? That's what I mean. There's got to be a way that they can look at something, the league, where they say, why are all these teams doing this? Because that hurts competition. That's why you have only a select amount of teams, like 8 teams on your hand that you can count on your hand that compete every year.
In order to do that, you need a roster. You need a salary floor, right? You can't have teams at the top like the Dodgers and the Yankees spending $240 million a year, and then you have teams at the bottom of the league like the Orioles that are spending less than $30 million a year. Like you can't say that there's any kind of competitive balance when those 2 teams play in the same division and the one team has a roster that's $200 million more than the other roster.
Well, and that should tell you all you need to know. They just had a labor strike and they didn't why would you not work on something like that? That to me would be something that would help the game.
It's broken news. It's just broke. Like whenever baseball gets a chance to fuck something up, they embrace that shit. They really do. Like I don't know. Gentlemen, holy shit, we've been going an hour and 15. God damn. What are some great conversations. Jay, I'm gonna let you have the floor. Let's do final thoughts. What are your final thoughts leading into the weekend, leading into What do you got?
Final thoughts. So for me, excited for a new baseball season. Obviously, extremely disappointed in the way the hockey season is ending or has went. But yeah, I'm looking forward to baseball being back. I mean, obviously, baseball is my number one sport, my number one passion. And, the fact of the matter is, we went over the tax and we're going to be relevant. I mean, are we going to win the division? I mean, that's to be seen. But I think the Phillies have improved enough for me to feel confident and be really excited. And I will be going to the games because I remember I had made a point that I said I was not going to go to a game unless the Phillies went over the tax. Well, they went over the tax, so I will go to games.
Joe, what do you got? Final thoughts?
Pretty much just to piggyback off what Jay said, it's it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's this team's gonna score a lot of runs. I can't wait to get down to the stadium and enjoy that environment and be down there with all the Phillies fans and win some 11-10 games and sticking around until the last bat in the ninth inning. When you got that, those guys in that lineup, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And then with the Flyers, it's hard. It's hard to really think about it and really know what to say because there's just so much uncertainty. But at least you have the Phillies. At least they're going to be entertaining, and they should be right there when it comes down to it for the division if things go according to plan.
And listen, and to piggyback off what you guys, the thing that I love right now, I think March, you could argue that March is probably one of the best sports months on the calendar. You got the confluence of hockey, basketball, you got baseball with spring training starting, you got March Madness going on. Like I'm just embracing the last button on the remote, like just wearing out the remote. You've seen some of my stuff on social media where I got like 5 different screens going at the same time, like just embracing it all, just trying to like sports was always that was always our family thing growing up. Shout out to my pops. He's a big Nova guy. So, my pops is probably at home throwing up his V's for Nova Nation and throwing back a couple Miller Lights. But just embracing all that sports that that just makes things fun. So, enjoy your sports. Find something you like. If you can't find something, I don't know, go find our podcast. Go find us on YouTube. Go find us on your podcast things. One thing real quick before we jump out of here, we're in the final 8 of the Wildfire Philly Sports Podcast bracket. We're going up against a Flyers podcast called Tie My Skates. But right now we got like a 60-something to 30-something lead on them. I think it ends tomorrow. So I think not to talk a little shit, but I think they might be tying our skates. But if you get a chance, head over to our social media. You'll find the voting over there. While you're there, punch a vote for Big T Will and the Philly Full Court Press. They're doing a fantastic job covering the Sixers and the NBA. Philly, it's been dope. Have a good night. Later.
See y'all.